I don't know what it's like today, especially with all of the electronic gadgets that are available for kids now to entertain themselves for these road trips. But I remember what it was like when I was a kid. Boring. I mean, here we are on these trips, and for myself, oftentimes, I would think about my dad. Poor Dad. I think, and I know, he has a special place in heaven just for putting up with me on all these different family road trips that we would have. Hey, Dad, are we there yet? No, son, we just started 5 minutes ago. We have a 12-hour drive. Oh, 5 minutes later. Hey, Dad, are we there yet? No, son, we're not there yet. Maybe about 15 minutes later, I would say again, hey, Dad, are we there yet? And Dad would say, yes, we're there. I'd say, we are? And he'd say, no, now be quiet back there. And so I would go into this like mind-numbing mode. And so I would do things like count license plates, count trees, count the hair on the back of Dad's head. 40. And a particular game that I really liked was, giving kind of a zombie stare at the cars behind us or alongside of us. I would do something like and I get these interesting reactions from people, and then some of them would pass us by and they would laugh as they were passing us by, and my dad would say, why are they laughing at us? And he'd ask my mom, honey, why are they laughing at us? And Mom would say, I don't know, dear. And I never did tell them why they were laughing at us, because of that stare. And then sometimes I would do that imaginary pull of the cord, when the semi-trucks would go by, and they would blow their horns, and that would be quite fun for me, but not for Dad. Poor Dad, it would scare him half out of his wits, I remember one time he had a coffee cup in his hand, and I did that, and the horn blew, and all over the place. Are we there yet? We call this third Sunday of Advent Gaudete Sunday. But if I would name this Sunday, I would call it Are We There Yet Sunday. Because think about it. Here we are in the middle of the Advent season. We have just finished 2 weeks now of Advent. We're right in the middle, beginning now the third week. And we're wondering, are we there yet? And the church knows this. The church knows that its children can sometimes get antsy, can sometimes get waned in their enthusiasm, can get distracted by the many things that are going on as we prepare for Christmas. The church knows this, and so we get a little bit of a reprieve, a respite, even to the point of changing our colors. This is the only time, maybe two times in the year, you'll see me wearing pink. Because it's a color for rejoicing. It's a color for joy. And so we have this respite, this time to regroup, to rejuvenate, to be reminded of where we are going in this journey. Ultimately, who it is that we are going to see and what is our final destination. We get a glimpse, we get a sneak preview, especially in our readings this evening, in particular from our gospel. From our gospel, we hear and learn 2 things. Who it is that we're going to see and where we are going, and ultimately who it is that is showing us the way. Jesus tells John the Baptist's disciples when they come to him, wondering if he is the Messiah, and Jesus says, well, go tell John that the deaf hear, the dumb speak, the lame can walk, lepers are cured, the dead are raised, and the good news is proclaimed to the poor. In other words, Jesus is saying these are the criteria that the prophets themselves gave for the Messiah. and it's being fulfilled in your midst. Look for yourself. And so we have that sneak preview. And then with John, we get a glimpse of who he is and what he is doing for us. We're on this road. We are on this Advent journey. And John is pointing the way. You know, Jesus says of John, "Who did you go out to see? What did you expect? A reed swaying in the wind?" In other words, Jesus is saying, are you expecting to look and find somebody ordinary, somebody who is common? Because there were many reeds on the banks of the Jordan River where John was baptizing. So did you go to expect someone ordinary? How about somebody weak, that's blown and swayed by even the slightest breeze? John was neither ordinary nor weak. So then Jesus says, then what did you go out to see? Someone in fine clothes? Fine clothes are for those who are wealthy, those who are a part of the royal court. John wore camel's hair and lived in the desert. He wasn't wealthy. For those that had fine clothes and lived in the court, they were those who flattered the king. Not only did John not flatter the king, but ultimately what he said about King Herod ended up costing him his head. So what did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes. And more than a prophet. For Malachi says and refers to this person, the messenger who goes before the Lord to prepare the way. In other words, John is that signpost. He is the one who is pointing the way for all of us as we head towards Christmas. You know, when I was young, there was a road that went south of the little town where I grew up on. And it was a gravel road that went several miles south. And my friend and I would walk on this road before we were old enough to drive. And we would go to the end of this road where my friend's father had some property. It was by the river, and we would go out there and explore and things like that. But halfway on this gravel road was a fork. And if you went to the right, it would ultimately lead you to the river where my friend's property was. If you went to the left, it would take you to the next town south. Happened to be St. Clair. And there was an old rickety sign. And on this old rickety sign, it had St. Clair 7 miles, and it had an arrow pointing to the left. Sometimes, when we were walking down that road, my friend forced me to move that sign when we felt mischievous. And I'm sure that probably most of the people that used that road probably didn't even need the sign. They knew the road. But I often wondered, were there people that went down that road that went left instead of going right? Or went right instead of going left? All because we moved the sign. My friends, on this third Sunday of Advent, we are given a wonderful opportunity to refresh ourselves spiritually, to get our spiritual bearings back again, and then to resume and continue our journey on that Advent road to ready ourselves in preparation for the birth of Christ. And John is pointing the way for us, making sure that we are on the right path. May we continue to stay on that path and then to exemplify and emulate the example of John. Not only for ourselves, but to also point the way to Christ for others. and never allow ourselves to be a reason for anyone to make a wrong turn to Bethlehem. Because we are not there quite yet, but we are getting closer. So let us rejoice. We have 2 more weeks left. God bless you.